Good evening, friends. Welcome back to the Hobby Barn Basement and the T1 Models A-10 EDF conversion build. This is Dave. Welcome back, pilots. Tonight, we're going to discuss the elevator installation and servos. The manual, which is all of about 10 pages, is not very specific. This is what you get for your pages for installation, just to give you a flavor. And depending on what servos you use, what arms you use, some of these directions are not going to apply. Now, fortunately, my friends at Pacific Jets have been doing short videos of their installations, and their version of what I'm doing is very similar, although in light of the fact that I am using Hitec D950-TWs and Hangar 9 aluminum arms, which I'm very fond of. I use these in many of my large-scale builds. I've had to make a few adjustments. So as I go through this, bear that in mind, that I've made a couple of changes. They did not impact the final outcome. However, you may find that you have to make these same adjustments in your build. Also, as you go through the hardware, all of them are labeled in Chinese. So when that happens, some of it may be confusing when you pull the hardware packets out. Some of them, instead of having L brackets, may have Y brackets. What I subsequently had to do was I ended up going through and separating out all the hardware to determine what went where. And also, all of your screws for mounting your L brackets, whether it's on top or below, do not have washers. They're all 3mm. You can pick them up at your local hardware store. They're about $1.25, $1.50 for a packet of 25. You're going to need at least 2 boxes of these. I had to go down and pick some up to finish this build. I had some, I did not have enough. So let's get on with it. The next thing you're going to want to do is manage your wiring. Now, if you bought the wiring harness from T1 to go with this model, and or you have the slime lights pre-installed as I did, you're going to need to go through the model and make sure all of your slime light wiring, at least in the rear end, is where it's supposed to be. In the rear of the fuselage, underneath where the horizontal mounts, there should be 2 connectors just like this underneath the base of the fuse. If there aren't, you're going to need to fish them. Chances are the base that they're connected with that holds them down came loose and it pulled back up into the fuse. I had to fish mine and pull them back out. The next thing you're going to have to do is determine which of your wiring harness connectors go to what parts. Now, there is 2 of these, and they don't look like they're going to fit. One of them has a really long, it's about a 12-inch wire that comes out here. The very first piece is what actually connects to your servo. Their second one is about 14 inches, and it actually runs out here, and it's what's out here for your rudder. So you have to actually fish that through. This is the wiring for the light. It was already here. So I fished through the first connector, and of course it's a dual, and then I did the same thing for this over here. Then you can go ahead and get on with installing your servos. Now, you're going to have, just as the instruction manual shows you, your rod, your ball lengths, your parts, etc. If you use the parts that I did, you do need to use the hardware for installing the ball length to the arm that comes with the Hangar 9, because it's coarse threaded, not fine threaded, number 3. And all of the hardware that comes in the T1 model is fine thread unless it specifically states otherwise. So that was the only change I had to make. Now, in my installation, as you can see, I had to mount my servos with the L brackets on top, not underneath, as these were 1-inch arms, and I put them in. I know it's a little hard to see down in there, just as the manual specified. And then in the back, linkages go on the outside of the arm, outside and outside, which also brings me to the next part of this. When you install these clamps, you have to take out one of the rods that holds the elevator on. They're very simple. Anybody who's done a large scale build will see it. It's right there. Grab a hold of it with a set of needle nose, pull it out. It will allow you to loosen up your elevator. This will pop out about a 1/2 inch, and then you can slide your clamp on, and then you can slide your other clamp on. And then, as the T1 videos will instruct you to do, there's video shows you with an actual bolt with a head on it versus a grub screw. Mine came with grub screws. It'll show you slide it on, gently tighten the grub screw down onto the flat to get it lined up. Then go ahead, pull out your bolts. As you can see here, get your thread locker on there. Of course, get them all blued up, screw them down, get them nice and tight, and then go ahead, pull out your grub screw, which should only be in there just firmly enough to hold it in place. Pull it out, get your thread locker on there, get everything tightened down after these clamps are tightened. So that way you have one solid hardened piece, both sides. Then you can go ahead, get your servo in, get your arm. It will take a little bit of fiddling to get your arm length correct. I can't give you the final length on mine. I did a lot of messing with it. Ultimately, I ended up, I can show you here, the final installation. Once it was complete, my servos, if I can hold that up there, came out just about there. They're almost level there with the bottom of that ruler when it comes across. You wouldn't think that they need to be centered. I was told by my friends at Pacific that they almost need to be completely level across the top, and that's what I did. So I split the difference just in case. I'd rather add a little trim than have it going upwards and go crazy. So just in case. The last piece is, once everything is completed, you have everything tight, please make sure you thread lock everything. You will not, by the way, need to CA these holes. These are wood screws. They will drill these at 2.5 millimeters. You will have to drill out the mounts, the aluminum mounts, to 3 millimeters, as that's what these wood screws are. This is hardwood, and as typical of that type of hardware, if you try to CA the holes, you'll twist the heads off them. As you can see, it happened. I had to replace it. So that should just about do it. As you can see, I have my spaghetti here as part of the wiring harness. So once this is installed onto the bottom, these 4 screws came as part of the hardware pack for the horizontal. So these are your mounting screws for the horizontal. These 2 that'll have the smaller clip ends, and they're about 5 feet long, are the ones that attach to your elevators and your rudders. As I said, these will connect to the ones that are existing in the fuselage, and this is provided you have the lights and you bought the wiring harness. And then you'll have to label them to keep track of which wires are which, and then they just simply click together. So when I'm ready to attach this, I'll fish these wires, I'll make sure they're labeled, and then once they're into the fuselage, I'll know what goes where, and I can simply plug them in. So that should just about do it for the elevator installation. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to drop them down in the comments box. And thanks for watching. This is Dave with Hobby Barn Plans and Canopies in the basement. Have a great night.